When we demystify the word manifest, what we're really saying is helping humans get back to who they truly are. The opposite of fear is trust. And when we learn to lean into trust, feel connected, and give ourselves full permission to lean into who we want to be and how we want to feel, we create a life of wealth. Hey everyone, I'm back, and today I'm really excited to share with you Heidi Stevens, Heidi Stevens, Stevens. Go check her out on Instagram. Heidi and I have been friends for a little while, and we sat down and had a conversation about manifesting. Heidi and I teach very similar things, but we do it wildly differently. And every time we sit down and we have conversations, I hear things differently and she hears things differently. And that is the beauty of connection, that I believe all we're doing here, whatever modality you choose, whatever, whoever you choose to connect with, or whatever books you read or podcasts you listen to, when anyone is teaching anything about feeling good, living a life that's in alignment, fulfillment, making more money, feeling better in your body, whatever that is, it's all a manifestation. That everything in our life is a manifestation. And we see this on bigger scales, macro scales, where we see how leadership in our country or in countries globally has disrupted and has caused fear and has caused intense disconnect in the human experience. And then there's this group of humans on the earth that have maybe been through horrific things, and yet they're still able to carry and inspire this sense of hope. Their life is not perfect. They don't wake up every day feeling amazing, but they have to do the work. And I'm always fascinated. I've always, from the very beginning, wanted to know why people do what they do and how some people perceive to be succeeding in life when others are really struggling. And of course, I have to be a student of my own curiosity, and every single time I lean in and I learn something new, it brings me to this next breadcrumb in my life, whether that's trauma work or really understanding belief systems. And lately, I've been really getting into the science of habits, micro habits, just making your day 1 degree better and letting go of this shame. The shame of, that wasn't perfect, or I didn't do that good enough, whether that's in parenting, whether that's in your work, whether it's in your relationships, your health. We are so damn hard on ourselves. But where does that come from? It comes from our mind. It comes from ego. It comes from perfectionism. It comes from cultural conditioning of what we think good looks like. And we're seeking external validation. And so when you go on this journey, this inner journey of seeking that internal fulfillment, it's a new skill. It's wildly uncomfortable because we've put ourselves in a culture, in an ecosystem, in a family, in certain relationships, which require certain energy. And then when we become the disruptor of our own lives and we choose to make different choices, when we choose to develop different habits, when we choose to let go of behaviors that are no longer serving us, we're disrupting. We're disrupting the culture on a bigger scale. We're disrupting systems that are broken. We're disrupting thought patterns. We're breaking generational patterns in our parenting. We're breaking generational patterns in disease and illness, whether that's mental, physical, emotional. And I attract disruptors. I attract women and men and humans who want to create change in this world. And the uncomfortable truth about that is we have a lot to give. We have a lot in our heart and in our soul that wants to be projected out into the world. And what we don't realize is sometimes we have this all or nothing mindset that kills us. It burns us out. It's not sustainable. And the hard fact and reality that we need to accept is that it literally all starts with us. It doesn't matter if it has to do with your child. It doesn't matter if it has to do with a partner, a friend, a colleague at work. When we start to change our internal ecosystem within ourselves, we change the culture in our home. And when we change the culture in our home, we change the culture in our work. And when we change the culture in our work, whether you work for somebody else or you work for yourself or you are a house manager, aka stay at home, you change the culture. You change the conversation. You change the belief systems. You literally change the lineage. This is emotionally uncomfortable work. It's not hard. It's just emotionally uncomfortable. So I'm really excited for today's conversation with Heidi. She gives a different perspective, a different spin on it. And I really hope you gain value from this conversation, because I remember when I first started this personal development journey, especially when I started getting into thoughts and beliefs, oh boy, I was really overwhelmed. And that's why I try to make things practical and step by step. And that's what I teach in my coaching programs. So let's give it up for Heidi. And I want to hear from you. I want to know, was this helpful for you? Did you have any aha moments? I also want to be interactive and hear from the community. So you are welcome to text me at 313-710-5199. Let me know. I'm the one who reads it and responds. 313-710-5199. It's a U.S. American phone number. Or send me a DM on Instagram at Heather Chauvin, and let's dive in. You are not alone. This is possible. You do not need to change overnight, just 1 degree better every single day. All right. Hello, Heidi.
Hello. I am so happy to be here with you.
We preface this with, everyone is going to be vibing high. We're going to be shaking and being like, whoa, this is all about manifesting. And anytime Heidi and I get together and we're pinging off each other, we bring up the energy.
We could feel it before we even hit record. We were like, oh my gosh, here we go. Let's go.
Yes. So you're going to feel us rise, and we're just going to get intense. So before, obviously, there was an introduction. They heard the introduction of who you are and the magical being. What I love about you, Heidi, is you are a mother. You are you're a wife. You're all these things. You wear all of these hats, and you're a human being having this experience. And you're also a teacher, a coach, and you talk a lot about manifesting. Mm-hmm. And I think in the wellness space, there's a lot of I should, and I try really hard to think positive, and miscommunication around what manifesting actually is and how to live it. And you and I have had these conversations that we teach the same thing in very different ways and very different languages. And that's the beauty of it is, we know there's contrast. We know we can suffer. We know all of these quote unquote bad, and I'm using air quotes, things can happen in our lives. And I always like to tail end that with, and what are you going to do about it? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you the microphone for a minute and just why are you obsessed with manifesting?
I mean, my background really is coming from my master's in spiritual psychology, which we didn't talk at all about manifesting in that space, which is interesting. And so the work that I do today is based primarily off of my training on that. And then also just my life, the work, the inner work, the outer work, the journey that I've been on for the last 15 years. And that's really been a combination of, I have always been very driven, very, up until a certain point in my life, I was very outwardly focused. I thought that having the things and the money and the this and the right husband and all of this stuff was going to bring me peace and happiness and joy. And it wasn't until I started getting some of those things. It wasn't like I had all of it, but I hit my 6 figures at 25 and blah, 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 whatever, right? Just had some things happening. And my physical body broke down, massive adrenal fatigue. I was bulimic, body totally inflamed. And it was this point in my life that I thought, well, wait, think I'm doing all the right things here. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm working hard. I'm making the money. I'm da 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 da. And my body is actually repelling all of this. My body's going, no. And so at that time, about 15 years ago, 25, it set me on this inner journey. I started looking for deeper answers. I started going, wait, why am I really here if it's not just for all of this stuff? And so the word, fast forward today with what I teach, the word manifesting, look, it's a sexy conversation. It's a tool to catch people's attention. It is something that I use, I believe in, and it is very much a both and, meaning let's go for the outward stuff. And I am taking a firm stand that on that path and that journey, you are doing all of the inner work to get there, because you and I know that it is only through that deeper inner work of looking at the shadow and being willing to process and being willing to feel the feelings that you actually are then able to move through the darkness and see more light and to start feeling better and to start experiencing a higher vibration, a higher frequency that then naturally starts attracting more of what you want on the outward with a level of ease. Because we're all manifesting all the time, whether we're conscious of it or not. So whether you like what you have going on in your outer environment right now or you don't like it, it is a result of what you have manifested and the decisions that you've made, the beliefs that you've had, the thoughts that you've been thinking, and the actions that you've been taking up until this point. So we can dive way into like the toxic positivity and, just saying affirmations and it's going to come, and the sitting in Shavasana and the secret, right? Like all of that stuff is associated with manifesting. But it's so much deeper than that. And there's so many more layers.
Oh, I love this. So you just said, people will ask me, what's your mantra? What are your affirmations? And I don't resonate with that. So I'm like, I don't know. They're like, well, how do you get through this? Or how do you, and I'm like, so I'm curious your perspective on that, because we can experience contrast, right? I oftentimes am like, what do you want? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, you know what you don't want. So now we have to work through giving ourselves permission to really step into and want what we want, or even just say it. Once you say it, now you're going on this journey, and all of a sudden, I call it emotional poop. Like all your stuff comes up. You're not just listening to the podcast and reading the books and attending the conferences. You're actually doing the work and integrating it. And from my experience, the second you do that, everything, you're like, oh, I don't know why I do this. You're like, well, just take action. You'll figure out why, or it will come up and out. So when people start to feel the contrast of what they don't want, they get scared and back off. And so I really wanted to have a conversation with you about the importance of contrast and your perspective on that.
Sure. So I'm going to speak to the first point first, which is the affirmations and mantras, because I actually do like affirmations and mantras. And I think there's a real time and place for them. What I hear a lot of is, well, I've been saying my affirmations and it's still not working. And it's like, well, how long have you been living the way that you've been living? If it's been the last 30 or 40 or 50 years and you think that 1 week of affirmations is going to turn the whole ship around, like newsflash, right? So for me, affirmations and mantras are a really a tool to use to go to when you start to feel your stuff come up. So like you're speaking to, when you start feeling the contrast, when you start feeling like I'm starting to question myself. Who am I to do this? I don't know how. All of those things, that's all the old programming. That's all what has gotten you to this point. So one of the things that I talk about and teach a lot is becoming a neutral observer. And the more we're able to become a neutral observer of how we're moving through our days and what we're thinking, and we're all thinking somewhere between 60 and 70,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of those thoughts are the same thoughts that we thought the day before and the day before and the day before. So in order to start having a different experience, we've got to start retraining, rewiring, re-choosing our thought patterns. And so it's in that contrast that you're talking about. It's in that, oh, look, I'm doing that thing again. Oh, I'm nagging my husband. Oh, I'm yelling at my kid. Oh, I'm thinking, who am I to start a passion-based business? All of these things, those are all thoughts that we all have. The thing that's going to set the successful person and the person that's quote unquote manifesting or living a higher vibration apart from the rest of the people are those that can catch that thought. We catch that thought and we go, wow, there I am again. And, in the 12-step program, they say we don't have power over our first thought, but we always have choice in the second. And so it's in that second thought that we go, okay, what am I going to choose? I find that when I'm in that swirl, it's a lot easier to have a set affirmation for me to go to instead of trying to think about one on the spot. Because my mind's already going back into old programming. And so when I have something that I just can repeat, like, okay, take a deep breath. I am expanding in love and abundance and joy every day and in all ways. And I inspire those around me to do the same. Like that's one of my go-tos.
I just laugh because it's like I do affirmations. I just don't call them that.
Of course. Yeah. Of course. And of course you do. Because the whole affirmations and secret and manifesting, it's gotten this like rap in this online wellness space.
And I'm such a rebel. I'm like,
I know there's part of you that's just like, I'm going to say no to all of it.
I got to make it my own. Don't tell me what to do.
Yes. So that's how I use them and that's how I teach them. And that's how they work for, in my world.
But that's what I want to talk about, where it's like, there is no one right way, right? Like there's so many ways. Okay. So now that you're catching yourself, because I'm going to call you a risk taker. You love to dream and leap and jump. And there's the dreamer and then there's the like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that. Right. And so you see it and you're like, I'm going for it. And when you go for it and all this stuff comes up, Heidi, people will say you're brave and courageous. You're brave and courageous. So how do you process that when it's like all coming?
So I'm going to answer that maybe in not a direct way, because this is a pattern that I'm seeing with a lot of people in my world. And I know they're similar to people in your world and, the women that you work with. And I think a lot of us are visionaries. A lot of us do have the ability to have some idea of what we want, right? You hear it. I want to create a membership site that's XYZ. I want to have $1 million business. I want to make a big impact. I want to build the dream house, whatever the thing is. So on some level, most, whether you're going to admit it or not, everyone listening to this have some idea of what it is that you want. You just haven't given yourself permission to actually let yourself go there. Okay.
Say it again. Say it again.
Say it again for the people in the back. Every single person, whether they know it or not, has clarity on what it is that you desire. There is something that is tapping on your shoulder. There is something that when you're laying in bed at night that you're like, I would love to have more of this. I would love to experience this. And the only reason why you're not speaking it out loud is because you don't know how, you think that you don't have the resources, you think that you don't know the right people, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So for the people that are willing to dream and willing to speak and willing to say, I'm bold enough to actually put this out there, or at least tell my coach or tell my friend or tell this new community that I'm in that I want the thing. The pattern that I see people get stuck in is they're so future forward and they're future fantasizing, and they're not actually looking at the steps that are directly in front of them. So the key to how I've built the life I have, the key to how Heather has built, is that we vision, we let ourselves dream, we let ourselves go, what would feel amazing? And then we drill back down and go humbly, what's in front of me right today? And what do I need to do? And what are the next steps? Because so often I just see women that are like, I want to build this big thing, but then they're just caught in their stuff to like put a price tag on their program or to talk to one human. And there's all this stuff that gets in the way. Like, I'm going to let you talk now, but that's just, it's a both and. You have to be willing to have the courage to take that next step and dream at the same time.
Okay. So then you're taking the next step, you're watching what's in front of you, and what's in front of you might be really incredibly uncomfortable. I would like to quickly have this conversation, which may not be so quick. We can do hard things. I'm curious your feelings about the word hard when we're trying to manifest, and this like what has become very popular of like, I can do hard things.
Well, it's funny because you've heard me facilitate in breath work, and I say just that, right? You can do hard things, and it's something that I coach people through. I believe that things feel hard only because of our own resistance. If we're actually tuned in, aligned in our heart space, taking inspired action, believing in the dream, believing and connecting with our higher power, whatever that is, spirit, source, universe, God, if you're actually aligned and in that place, it doesn't feel hard. It's only getting through all of our bullshit and all of our stuff and all of our belief systems that makes it feel hard.
Okay. I want to piggyback off of it. I want to really dig into this because I stopped trying to use the word hard, and I will say we can do uncomfortable things, or I can do uncomfortable things.
That's because so much better.
Because this whole culture of hustle and like the addiction to busy, I felt like if we're trying to do hard things all the time, then I'm seeking out hard things, and I'm never going to understand how this can feel easy. Like you were saying, like when you're connected and aligned, it doesn't feel hard. And so I'm like, I can do emotionally uncomfortable things. It's not hard to send an email. It's not hard to state a price. It's not hard to have a conversation with your partner. It's just emotionally uncomfortable because it's a new skill or muscle that you're trying to work out and your stuff's coming up. So I'm like, this isn't actually hard. That's not.
Such a better way to put it. I'm going to borrow that from you.
Please do. I have a tiny mission to especially help women stop using the word hard, because I'm like, it doesn't go well together. And the hard work, and if you have to sacrifice and you have to do this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like patriarchy, like guilt ridden, like what is this? If we want freedom and ease and abundance and flow, why are we trying to make it so hard to get that?
Well, and I think that it then takes people to the flip flop of what you're sharing, because there's this, the other side of the coin is that, oh, well, it's just all supposed to be easy and, sit in lotus pose and just have the XYZ just come right in. And that's where, you're kind of poking holes at the manifesting conversation. It's like, wait, no, it's not that it's easy in the sense of you're not taking action or you're not putting yourself out there. I love that. I love what you're saying. It gets to be emotionally uncomfortable. And newsflash, that's why we're in a human body, is to get over our stuff and to expand and to go up and to evolve as a human, like as a soul having a human experience. That's why we're all here. And it's not like, I teach this thing called the goal line and the soul line. And it's whatever you're experiencing on the goal line, whether you have the things or you don't have the things on the goal line, they are always, always opportunities to move up the soul line and to experience more inner peace, more inner joy, more oneness, more love, the ultimate of why we're actually here.
Ooh, juicy conversation. So when I stepped into this space, not professionally, but just for my own, like when I watched The Secret, that I fell right into that trap. I, was into meditation and yoga, and it was like, just meditate on it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, how am I didn't understand the action, the inspired action. And sometimes just taking action when you don't physically want to, but it's like, you're moving through, right? Like you're sifting through and you're like, okay, it's here. And really knowing when to push and when not to. And when I say push, and I know you know what I'm talking about, but there's bigger energies. You're like, this isn't need like a back off. This needs like a little assertiveness. Like, nope, come on, let's go. And so how do you know that? Because a lot of people will ask me, when do I rest, like back off? And when do I push? Like, I've been leaning into this and it's not moving. So when do I just like stand in my power and be like, this is going to happen without burning out?
It's a really good question. And I think it takes a lot of discernment. And this is when we have people around us that can mirror back to us, and, coaches and friends and people that can kind of talk this stuff out. I was on a back and forth Voxer with a dear friend, multiple 6-figure business yesterday, and she was having a bunch of some negative feedback on one of her programs. And she was saying, all of her stuff was coming up. And she was saying, I don't know. I think I just need to like take a rest and take a break and think about all of this and figure it out. And maybe I was going to launch this again in April, and I think I just won't launch until September. And I said, no, that is the exact opposite. You have all this momentum. You have 75 humans in this program. Any and all of the feedback that's coming towards you right now, this is all an opportunity for you to be able to sift and learn and really listen to what's accurate here, what's for me right now, and what is their stuff as the clients that are just being triggered in this coaching program right now, and they're just projecting on you. So there's a lot of kind of, peeling back, I think that has to take place. And, my personal experience has been specifically in the last 4 years in this coaching space. I came in, I was pushing, I was basically doing exactly what I did in my real estate business, in the coaching business. I was very coachable, meaning I was doing what everyone else was telling me to do, and I wasn't really thinking for myself. It landed some financial results. I burned out in 1.5 years. I was exhausted, and it was so much just part of who I was. I couldn't even really see it. Like, I was just going, and I was like, but I'm doing what I love, and I'm working with these amazing clients, and like, this should all be right. And my team actually looked at me and sat me down one day and kind of had an intervention. And they were like, you are miserable right now, and you're really not liking what you're doing, and you've got to stop. Like, this isn't sustainable. And, one of our mutual friends, Kathy Heller, came into my life at that time, and she was able to really mirror for me, along with my team, enough is enough. Like, you have to stop doing it this way. And so I got the message and I heard the message, and I was also working with a healer at the time, and went a little bit into a cocoon, like really, really went inward for a while. And it wasn't that I wasn't posting or continuing to run my mastermind or showing up, right? I was still doing my business and serving, but inwardly I was in a real season of quiet and incubation and just curiosity. And it was uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. And it didn't all work itself out in 2 weeks or a month. It was a year of what wants to come through and how do I want to do this differently? And I just really was a kind of like communing with source, if you will. And again, still taking action, like still running my mastermind and coaching, but really going, what's the next program and how does this want to come through? And receiving feedback. And that's when, you've now seen that on the other side. So through that year process, I birthed 2 programs. Align Higher came through, and now Magnetics come through. And you've been such a soul sister and helping kind of, work with me on that and just kind of push me in ways that I was uncomfortable and put myself out there in times where I was like, okay, I just want to be done with this launch and I don't want to keep going. And you were like, keep going, keep going. And, I've really found my groove in the last 6 months, and I'm all in my business in a way that in a different way, in a fully integrated way that I really feel like I have unstoppable energy, but it's taken a lot for me to get here.
So I really appreciate this conversation because I think and I say I'm talking about the culture, addicted to hustle and struggle, not struggle, busy. And because that's the definition of success or what perceived success. So you fell into that trap, right? In one business and then left that business because you felt a calling to help women in another way. So you jump into that, you bring all your baggage with you into a wellness space that is teaching you like, oh, you just got to do this. And anytime you're starting something new, of course, there's fears, right? There's uncertainty, and you're trusting the mentorship that you have. But something that you just said, which is sustainability, because I try to explain this to people that, sure, get that 6 figures, multi 6 figures, sure, hit that 7 figures. And that's the goal. But if you're not feeling the way that you want to feel while you're achieving that goal and becoming, you're going to get to it. You're going to be exhausted. You're going to burn out. And then, like you said, you're going to have to go into this cocoon for a year. So you created all this momentum and then boom, flat, right? And so some people learn this lesson. Some people don't. Sometimes we have to learn it ourselves from the contrast and the pain that we experience. But this is why I love you, because I think when you're just going out and teaching this way of like, yes, there's discomfort. Yes, you have to show up. Yes, you still have to check things off the list, but you can do it in alignment with how you want to feel. And you will always have this pendulum bringing you back or reminding you, like knocking at the door, like, don't. And so, I don't know, I'm just reflecting that back to you or mirroring that back to you. One thing that you just said, though, is what I heard you say is helping you get out of this cocoon, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are not only like-minded, like values of, hey, we're going to do this in alignment. It's sustainable. I'm not burning out again. And knowing like, hey, you're blocking yourself here rather than like, I know you're tired, but you have way more energy and you're only tired because it's resistance, not because you're actually going to burn out.
Yeah. And it's not just a straight upward, cycle. Like we're all in cycles. And even in the last, year or so that you and I have known each other, like we've watched each other go through different seasons and different cycles. And I feel like I'm even in one right now. It's like, just went through this really fairly large launch, and I can hear the voices that are like, push right now, or like, keep going. And it's like, I know better than that. I know that, there's a season for the launch. There's a ramp up. You're in a book launch right now. I've heard you say I need to pace myself in the book launch. And it's like, I think that we get caught in these like black and white cycles, and we think it has to be all or nothing. And that's really where the conversation of running a more, feminine led business really comes in. It's not burnout or bust. It's not, it's not all, it's like this large launch, and okay, now I'm serving the women in this program, and I have all these ideas. I have all these ideas about what I want to do next and how I want to do it, but I need to also really take care of myself. And there's a lot of changes going on personally in my personal life right now. And like, do what's in front of me. Do what's in front of me. Write the ideas down. Hire the right people, which I'm doing right now. Share with them the ideas and get focused on what is moving forward next. You're never going to like do everything in a day. Yeah. So there is that ebb and flow. And it's just the more that you know yourself, the more that you can begin to listen to yourself, the more you practice, the more you exercise these muscles of listening to your intuition, of trying something and having it work, trying something and getting it wrong, taking too long of a break, not taking enough of a break. No one's perfect. Yeah. It's like, do it messy, listen to yourself, surround yourself with amazing people that can reflect to you, and keep going.
So much goodness in there. It's been interesting to watch, especially obviously everyone, we get behind the scenes kind of footage, or like, you begin to hear as you gain experience of like, what is this really, right? Like what you're seeing and then what happens behind the scenes. So launching a book, people think, I don't know how long it takes that people think, but now that it's in the visibility portion of it, that's almost the easiest part, like with the actual physical work, right? Of like, check, okay, done. So it's out there. So all of a sudden people are like, you must be so busy. And I'm like, I've been prepping for this for 2 years behind the scenes, but now that it's out there, they're like, I know you're busy. I'm like, I know you're projecting, but the visibility stuff comes up, right? Like the things that you can't prepare for, like energetically of like, oh, interesting. Wow. Why is that happening? So it's very intriguing how, when you're a control freak and you're trying to predict the future of like, how am I going to emotionally respond to this? You don't really know until you actually do it.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. The perfectionism comes up of like, how do I know what's going to happen? And, I'm sure clients will say to you, like, what do you think I should do? And you're like, I actually don't know. You're the expert on you. What feels good? Okay, try that. That feels like it's headed in the right direction. Taking action. Oh crap, that didn't work. Or, 90% of it worked, but this 10%. Well, you wouldn't have had that feedback if you didn't take that action. So it's like, the quicker you pivot and course correct, the quicker you get in alignment. So
yeah. And it's bringing me back to the kind of the beginning of the conversation when you were saying, well, how do you kind of get out of your own way and like take all this action? People must say, oh, you're so courageous or you're so brave. And, I don't know what that's about for me personally. I feel like there is something innately in me that is willing to risk. I'm a Sagittarius. I don't know, maybe my human design. I don't know. I just am that way. And I think that part of it was my upbringing. My dad was really hard on me, but he also really did instill a belief that I could do anything. And I had that growing up. Like, I know I can do this. And I think that's why I'm supposed to be doing what I do, because I'm like the ultimate, like grounded, but also like high energy cheerleader. It's like, no, let's go. Like you can do this,? And so, I really am able to inspire people to go beyond what they think is possible. And my husband, God bless him, God bless my husband, because he was willing to say, I'm willing to jump on this ride, this crazy ride with this woman, and it's hard for him sometimes because he knows that I'm not going to stop and he knows I'm going to keep dreaming. And right before we hit record, Heather and I were talking about how we're in transition. We're moving right now and we're starting to look at houses. And one of I have these visions of these, when I walk into a house, I can just see the potential and it becomes this huge project. And it's a long story short, but my husband and I have built 3 houses together and we're moving to a new town. And we kind of made a decision of like, well, let's just like buy a house. Like, let's just buy a house that we can be comfortable in and not necessarily take on another 18-month or 2-year project. And it's like taking everything in me to not like see the vision. And I do think it's the right thing for right now to just buy a house. And I'm so grateful that we can buy a nice house and not have to build one. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to know, how do you know? Because I mean, we all have yin and yang, right? The beauty of that in our partnerships.
Yeah.
And I know, sometimes you push him when you're like, this needs to happen.
A lot of the time.
Yes. So how do you know the difference of like, I know that it's the right thing right now versus, no, this is something that I want. I'm going to make it happen.
Well, I don't know it for sure because we haven't found the house yet. We haven't put down an offer. We haven't gone into escrow on anything. So I'll share I think this example might be supportive for people. So we actually have seen a house that is really priced very well in our budget. Would be financially very, very comfortable for us to move into. It has the right number of bedrooms. It is actually fairly done, meaning I would have to do very little to it. It's in a great neighborhood. There's all of these things that would check off a lot of the box logically, analytically. I actually really, really like the house. Yeah. I like the house. And there is something inside. There's this voice that's like, this isn't the house. This isn't the house. And I don't want to listen to this voice. Like, I really don't want to listen to it. I want to just push past it and like say, Kenny, let's go. Like, let's just, because I want to know where we're going to live next. I really want to know where our house is. That would relieve some inner just kind of swirl that I have right now of where are we going to land. And it's really, really hard for me to like,
uncomfortable.
Like, God, thank you. It's so uncomfortable for me right now to listen to that voice, but I feel like I have to. And I've learned enough along the way to trust that and to know that this or something better for the highest good of all concerned. Same reason why I didn't marry the guy, that I was in love with and thought I was going to marry right before Kenny. Same reason why we, didn't, whatever, all the same reasons why things don't work out, because on the other side, it's so much better and we just can't see it right here and right now. So I hope that helps. I've exercised this muscle of listening to my intuition even when it's uncomfortable and I don't want to.
I love that. Do you remember the first time you had to start listening to yourself? Do you remember a moment?
Oh, that's really...
A lot of people will ask, like, how do you begin to trust yourself?
I will say the one way I can answer that is I remember going through a 12-step program for an eating disorder. And I actually don't remember it. I think it's the second step. Is it the second step or the third step? That's, believe in something greater than you, have some type of higher power. And I grew up Lutheran and my husband's Jewish. We're all over the board religiously. But I consider myself very, very, very spiritual. But I didn't really know what that meant in the second step. And I remember going to the ocean and looking out at the ocean and just knowing that there was something out there. Just knowing that there was some type of power, energy, something. And I was pretty miserable at the time. I was, again, 40 pounds overweight and a 5'2" frame. And all I wanted was to find my husband and have kids. And I was sick of my real estate job. And I was really not happy inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember looking out at the ocean and just kind of going like, can you help me? Like, can you help me? It brings me to tears thinking about it. Just like I know there's something bigger out there. Mm-hmm. And it's been 15 years of exercising that muscle of learning to surrender and trusting in a power greater than myself and developing this real inner relationship, this very real personal relationship with God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I call on my angels and I ask for their support and I connect inside and I really tune in. And I know that, like that power has my back over everything. And it has your back too. Heather's, and it has whoever's listening to this. It does have everyone's back, and we're never given more than we can handle. We aren't. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, it's that trusting and that surrender. And faith is not easy. Faith is it takes a real commitment to being on a spiritual path. And it's just been filled with so much grace in my life. And I'm beyond grateful for it.
Your little grace.
Yes.
I love it.
My daughter's name is Grace. Yes.
Her daughter's name is Grace. That brought me to, and thank you for sharing that. It's always a plus in my book when someone cries. I'm like, yes, because that's true connection. When we're just giving ourselves permission to feel and be, and we can waver, and it's practice to come back to yourself again and again and again and again, and having those moments of surrender. And I think we can have it at different levels. I can really relate to that. I've had many of those moments, but I talk about it openly about when I was diagnosed, walking out of the hospital, and I said, you finally have my attention. And I also had to redefine my definition of God, universe, source, angels on my terms, not, what everyone else wanted me to believe, but what did I need to believe? And that relationship is constantly evolving. Yeah. But I remember going to a friend who, I don't know what she is technically, but she did a reading, like an angel reading or something. She said, Heather, you're constantly pulling your energy from you and not from source. Like you're pulling, and this is why you're exhausted. You're pulling it from you. And we've touched on this here about how when you're trusting the guidance and you're in alignment, it's in the flow and you can just go and do and be, and it feels quote unquote easy. And I didn't understand what she meant by that. I didn't get it. And I was so angry and frustrated. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I actually got myself sick. Like, I almost died. Like, what do you mean by this? And when you're an ambitious, individual woman, but you also have a lot of trauma from being the like strong one for everybody else, you're not only holding their shit, but you are like, you're the first one to raise your hand when there's crisis, right? Yeah. And, now we're living in a pandemic where everyone is, frontline is in crisis. And, I'm like, okay, what do I do? How can I help? And I'm like, honestly, we just have to do what we can, but being the light, like really showing others, like you don't need to pull from you. You can pull from something bigger. There is a big surrender and letdown, but until you're ready to let go and not white knuckle your life, it will always feel hard. It will always feel never enough. You're always going to feel like lack. And like you said, just that moment of staring at yourself in the mirror or being at the ocean or looking up and being like, I don't know who or what I'm talking to, but I'm now going to see things as signs and opportunities and lead into those breadcrumbs, as I call them, instead of, give me the 6-figure, or the 6-step launch figure to making $1 million. And I'm just going to push. Because it's all there. The strategy's there. All of that's there. It's how you're energetically showing up for it. So we could talk forever.
So good.
I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, and then we'll wrap it up.
I think over the years being on this journey, which it really is a journey. It's like, it's kind of a decision. Like, are you going to be on this more inward path or not? And there's no right or wrong. And, I've kind of stopped trying to tell people that they will end up in burnout if they're just really wanting to get the 6 figures and the 7 figures and the 8 figures. We both know that it's available in other ways, but if they're like stuck on their path of hard, it's like they've got to have the journey themselves, right? And it's just they'll hit it whenever they want to, and because it's an awakening. And who am I to, tell somebody when they're going to have their awakening? So I'm here for the women that already know that they either are already on an awakening path, or there's something that's speaking to them saying, I want more of this. And my own personal experience of that has been, the more I've been on this inner path, is you really can just open up to becoming more of a channel, which is what, you're just alluding to. And it's, it's these terms and words that I think get a little like, oh, Heidi thinks she's a channel or like a reader. No, I'm open and I'm clear. And you are too, Heather, and you're super intuitive, and it's what makes you a phenomenal coach, right? And it makes you be able to see and hold for other people. And when you are doing your own inner work, and when you're unraveling these patterns and you're shifting and you're up-leveling your frequency and doing all these things that we're talking about, you become more open to receive the messages and the clarity. And then you have the courage to start speaking them and telling the truth and telling your truth. And it just starts to all flow a lot easier. And we're all works in process, and we will continue to be as long as we are in a human body, because once you're done growing and once you're done learning, you will no longer need to be here in a human form. You'll have graduated, you will leave, and you will be on to your next soul and your next soul's journey that will have its own karma in the next lifetime. So going deep, right? Cycle of life to end this podcast.
No biggie.
Only way I know how. Yeah,
exactly.
No biggie.
Yeah, people are like, wow, that was deep. I'm like, we can't be friends if you just want to talk about the weather.
I know.
I
love you.
That's boring. So Heidi, you have a podcast as well. Where can people find you if they want to hear more of your wisdom?
Yeah, come over and join me. It's called the Heidi Stevens Podcast. I run a program called Magnetic that we launch a few times a year. And I have, I'm pretty active on Instagram. So you can find me there at Heidi Stevens.
You're magic. I just truly believe that the more women we surround ourselves with that are like-minded, it doesn't take much to all of a sudden you're like, these things are dropping in my life, or these things are leaving. And it's like, yes, surround yourself with who you want to become, because that is where the magic happens. So Heidi, thank you for being you. I love you.
So grateful for you.
Well, that's it. And I wanted to thank you for listening today, because I truly believe you are exactly where you need to be. And now I have a favor to ask. In exchange for the value you've gained from this free podcast, I'd be forever grateful if you would leave us a review on iTunes. Share the show with at least one woman in your life who you feel would benefit, and or take a screenshot and share it on social media. And always feel free to tag me at Heather Chauvin. The world does not benefit from your guilt and fatigue. The world needs more women who are willing to unlearn everything they've been taught. Women who are courageous enough to feel good and not let guilt run the show. I believe you are that courageous woman. To see if my community and coaching is the right fit for you and your big vision, the relationships you desire, the money, time, energy that you know deep down you are capable of creating, then head on over to heatherchauvin.com/work with me. That's Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com/work with me, and take the next step in the right direction. Taking a stand for how you feel means you are taking a stand for how your children show up as adults. And if you have a personal question or topic you'd like me to answer on the podcast, text me 313-710-5199. 313-710-5199. You are so worthy of feeling good. Now go do some scary shit.